people were talking about this. Some people belong in the yard, right? Not everybody gets to see everything, but vulnerability and authenticity is when we invite people into the home. And that's different.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to our January edition of our monthly leadership podcast. I'm your host, Avery Nesbitt. Hey, we are joined today by someone you're absolutely going to love. His name is Michael Pepper. He is a licensed counselor as well as a organizational effectiveness specialist. He communicates with teams to help them build high-performance teams and really establish what they want to do so they can do it faster and better. And Michael, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, so listen, we've had several conversations. I've been in some of your team buildings, and one of the things that we talked about, one of the things we hear about a lot as leaders and with the organizations you worked with, is this mysterious word called authenticity. And every post you look at, every blog, every whatever it is, all defines it a little differently. And I'd love for you have seen C-suite leaders and you've seen up and coming leaders. I'd love for you to talk with us about authenticity.
Yeah.
What is it? Why is it important? Why is it important right now? So
yeah, that's a great setup because it's
what
everywhere.
Is authenticity?
Yeah,
right.
It is.
Right.
It is a constant conversation, I think, for a lot of reasons, both good and bad. I think we see in this cultural moment right now, a lot of people living out kind of this idea of authenticity, whether it's through social media, whether it's through podcasts, trying to get some sense of what does it mean to be very real and authentic. And the way I've usually talked about it, I actually kind of work with clients on helping them understand what I think are some key differences between what I usually say is kind of vulnerability and transparency, but we can also say authenticity. And I'll kind of walk you through that, and we'll see if it produces something good here. But I usually tell people, if we think of ourselves as like a house, and you think of your stories, your experiences as a house, having people kind of in the yard and opening the curtains, they can see into your house. That's what I would call living transparently. So now you might open the windows and they might see, hey man, that's a really old, ugly couch. Where did you get that from? And you're able to say, listen, that's the couch I've had my whole life. That couch has been with me through a lot. I love it. And man, that's really brave of you to show that off.
Right.
The key being they're still outside the house. And what is shown is really still a managed view. And here's what I always tell people when we're talking about this. Some people belong in the yard, right? Not everybody gets to see everything. But vulnerability and authenticity is when we invite people into the home. And that's different. Because what happens if somebody's in your house? They might be able to see more. They might actually break something. They might not like being in your house. And part of, I think, in this moment, what's really hard for us to understand is then what does that actually mean in terms of how I show myself, how I share myself? And as leaders, I think that can be even more difficult because often we're living very publicly. And I'm sure, as you can identify too, it's kind of a battle, I think, social media, the way things are presented, to not play into that game and even feel like, yeah, people really know me. But a lot of the times the work that I do is when somebody comes into my office, they don't feel known by anyone. And that living transparently, while seemingly feels like, man, people really, and I even have people tell me like, yeah, I'm celebrated for my authenticity, but nobody knows about these back rooms that I have. So one of the things I've even had to wrestle through in my own life is I'm really good at telling my friends the things that I've already worked on, right? So, hey,
Yeah.
let me give you an
Yeah.
update. Here's some stuff I've been struggling with. Here's where I've been. Oh, wow, Michael, that's so vulnerable. And I'm thinking, "Phew, good. Okay, they bought it. No further
Yeah.
questions, right? It's so much harder to invite people into the process of it. So
That's good.
here's where I am today. Here's where I don't know where this goes. Here's where I don't have answers. What does it look like for you in relationship to sit here with me?
Yeah.
And that is a hard thing to ask somebody. And a lot of the work that I do usually centers on how do we start building those relationships to safely do that.
That's good. I even love just it simplifies it so much. The analogy of you're outside looking in, that's transparency, but you're invited in. That's vulnerability. That's
Yeah.
authenticity. What I've heard people wrestle with is, well, everyone tells you to be authentic, but they don't really want that.
Hmm.
They don't really want you to be too authentic because, leadership says you got to be this and you got to be that and you got to be this and you got to be that.
Right.
Well, what if I'm none of those things? Then am I not being authentic? So
Right.
what's the line between presenting yourself as a leader, but also being authentic? Is one line and one the real you? Like what's
Yeah.
the difference?
It's a good question. I think there is a demand on leaders that might, I think, accentuate what you're saying, in that you have a responsibility, I think, as a leader to, and I've had people talk about, and you've probably had experiences too. You can be around a leader who is almost so transparent and vulnerable that it makes things a little fuzzy. And so I think
Right.
where you hear that, like, people are saying be authentic, but nobody really wants that. I think it's sometimes a lack of awareness around what it means to be you. So, I can authentically be me all day long. My wife's not going to necessarily like all of that, right? She loves
Yeah.
me. She loves who I am and validates that. But there's some parts of me that are hard to be around. So I think some of the ownership is understanding and not, not separating it out in an unnatural way to say, okay, here's my flaws, here's what's hard. I can't show those to anybody. But
Right.
being aware of what that effect might be. Some of the best leaders I've ever served under were really aware of their own emotions and how those might affect me, but didn't give me the responsibility to figure that out.
That's good.
So if I got invited into the house, I wasn't then made responsible or felt responsible for the different rooms. And often that's even when I'm talking to people about what does it mean to invite others into our homes, we also have to learn how to be really good guests. So when somebody's practicing that authenticity, understanding exactly what's going on and what that means, and not weaponizing that or using that against them.
Join us next month for part 2 of our interview with Michael Pepper on leadership and authenticity. We hope you've enjoyed the new intro. Video produced by Priyanish Animations at priyanish.net. Music produced by Uphill Studios at uphillstudiosonline.com.